Ever wondered what someone's career would look like if they worked in a completely different time period? When it comes to Barbara Eden, we just can't help but wonder what would have happened if she had been born as a millennial. How differently would her life have turned out? What movies and TV shows would she have starred in? Would she even have become an actress at all? In this video, we try to paint a picture of this crazy, interesting alternate timeline. Without wasting more time, let's get started. The Hollywood industry has greatly changed with the passage of time. This means that the options available to older actresses are mostly not available to younger actresses. But this sentiment goes both ways. Younger actresses also have pathways and opportunities that their predecessors could only dream of. As Barbara Eden is currently in her early 90s, she was born in the early 30s and is a member of the silent generation. Though she is a descendant of Benjamin Franklin, that did not stop her family from bearing the brunt of the Great Depression. Had she been a millennial instead, she would have been born sometime between 1981 and 1996. This would have meant that her childhood would not be marred by such difficulty. This begs the question, though. To what degree did Barbara Eden's tough childhood make her the actress she grew to be? Did growing up without luxuries contribute greatly to her strength of character? Would she be the same person she is today had she been raised during an economic boom? Would she have become an actress at all? Well, all of this isn't to say that millennials have it easy. Some argue that they face greater challenges than any other generation. Besides, just looking at the numbers, it would have been easier to break into the industry in the 50s than it is today. These days, the competition is tougher than ever, with millions of people all trying to attain the glory of La La Land. So, if Barbara Eden was a millennial, what path would she have taken into the industry? What avenues and pathways would have been available to her? The real Barbara first broke in by appearing as a semi-regular on The Johnny Carson Show in 1955. Though variety shows are much less popular these days than they were back then, they haven't all but disappeared. Saturday Night Live would be the perfect program for millennial Barbara to make her breakthrough. By flexing her comedic chops, she would show the whole country that she was a comedienne to watch out for. After Saturday Night Live, what next for millennial Barbara? Well, she would likely have furthered her popularity by guest starring on numerous popular TV shows. The real Barbara achieved this by appearing on shows like I Love Lucy, Father Knows Best, Route 66, Adventures in Paradise, and The Millionaire. Though the media landscape has changed much since the 50s, millennial Barbara would still have some very good options. A millennial-born Barbara Eden could have taken the next step in her career by appearing on shows like Friends, Gilmore Girls, Scrubs, Sex and the City, and Arrested Development. Heck, she could even have appeared on The Sopranos. The point is that a different media landscape means slightly different options, and slightly different options could lead to totally unpredictable outcomes. Now, back when Barbara was coming up, the old Hollywood star system was still functioning perfectly. This meant that if an actor wanted to have a decent career, it would have been in their best interest to sign with one of the major Hollywood studios. The real Barbara did this with 20th Century Fox, but the studio was unable to make a megastar out of her. Well, what would millennial Barbara have done? Millennial Barbara would have entered Hollywood in an era where the star system was a vestige of the past. As such, she would not have had to wait for any executive to give her roles. She would have had the freedom to advocate for the projects she found most interesting. This would have likely seen her appear in more than a couple of decent movies. Perhaps millennial Barbara would have had a break as an action star. Such a genre was very unpopular among the actresses of old Hollywood. However, in the early 2000s, some of the best actresses in Hollywood found a way to make money while kicking butt. These included such icons as Halle Berry, Uma Thurman, Sandra Bullock, and Angelina Jolie. Would Barbara have had her big break by starring in such a project? Or would she remain as a low-key TV star until such a project came to her? Now, the real Barbara Eden is well known for her eponymous role on the hit fantasy TV show I Dream of Jeannie. The skimpy outfit she wore as her Jeannie outfit instantly made her a sex symbol. At the time, such an outfit was quite controversial, as in some ways Hollywood was not as comfortable with sex back then as it is today. Today, though, the outfit would hardly receive much criticism. If Barbara Eden was a millennial, on what sort of show would she have gotten her big break? What show would have transformed her from a little-known actress to an international cultural icon? Again, the media landscape has changed much, and fantasy sitcoms are hardly made these days. But this is not to say a millennial Barbara would not have excelled in one. Sure, sitcoms today are much more preoccupied with realism than they were back then. But there are some key exceptions to this trend. Think about Marvel's hit show WandaVision, which was a callback to the golden age of TV. A millennial Barbara could have played a similar sort of role as Elizabeth Olsen did in WandaVision. Heck, she could have been nominated for an Emmy too. Then again, there's a chance Barbara could have done something completely different. Rather than a fantasy sitcom, she could have led a serious multi-season drama. Though she was not primarily a dramatic performer, there's no reason Barbara could not have elevated serious material. A hit show like Orange is the New Black would have been the perfect vehicle for her unique talents. One of the highlights of Barbara Eden's career was the movie Flaming Star, in which she starred alongside Elvis Presley. Now there's hardly a star of Elvis's caliber today, but there are some decent candidates. Who could a millennial Barbara Eden have appeared in a similar movie with? Harry Styles and Austin Butler are some very interesting candidates. Truth be told, Harry seems a little too young for a millennial Barbara. However, she and Austin Butler could for sure make sparks fly. Austin has a movie coming out soon with Jodie Comer about the infamous Hells Angels biker gang. Would a millennial Barbara excel in such a role? Now, career aside, a millennial Barbara would also have had a vastly different personal life. After all, cultural attitudes towards dating and sex have changed dramatically since the 50s. For one, there's a big question mark as to if I Dream of Jeannie would be canceled or not. After all, Barbara's co-star Larry Hagman was a raging alcoholic. It is reported that on the set of I Dream of Jeannie, he constantly threw tantrums and made a nuisance of himself. Such behavior would be completely inexcusable in today's social and political climate. Hagman would likely have been fired from the show. Where would that have left Barbara? Another major aspect of a millennial Barbara's personal life that would be different is her romantic life. Barbara didn't get married as often as her peers, but she did have her fair share of flings and romances. For one, the actual Barbara Eden is rumored to have gotten down and dirty with John F. Kennedy. But are today's presidents even that adventurous and exciting? Besides, it's much harder for important people to have affairs these days. After all, there are cameras everywhere. Now, this is where things get a little more difficult, mainly because some tragedies can be avoided by virtue of time, but others can't. For example, when Barbara was growing up, antibiotics were not as advanced and people died from infected wounds all the time. These days, though, advanced medical technology has made that a concern of the past. But as wonderful a thing as technology is, it has its limitations. For one, would advanced medical science have been able to stop the overdose of Barbara's son, Matthew? Perhaps psychotherapy, which has been greatly destigmatized since the 20th century, would have prevented Matthew from turning to drugs to deal with his problems. But who's to say for sure? Well, turning back onto a lighter subject, a millennial Barbara would likely have had different romantic options today than she did back then. There also would not have been much pressure on her to marry so early. She likely would have had time to perfectly gauge her options. She also would likely have been encouraged to fulfill herself with other activities. Her memoir, Genie Out of the Bottle, chronicles her life from a childhood of poverty to making it in the golden age of Hollywood. But what if it was set in a different time period? Barbara Eden is still alive today. However, as she's in her 90s, it's safe to say her heydays are behind her. But what would the world look like if she was still active as a millennial actress? Hopefully this video has given you a great idea of the sort of career she would have. If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll also enjoy the one showing on your screen right now. Click, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one.